Hey Claire, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, to start, Departing Seniors gets to play with so many different genres, kind of all at the same time, as it is a coming of age story. It has horror elements, it's a sci-fi-esque kind of story, and it also is a detective story all rolled into one movie. And so for you, from, a creative standpoint, what was it like getting to play with all of those genres in something like this?
It was a really fun challenge. I'd done thrillers before, I'd done dramas, I'd done comedies. I'd never done anything that was straight up horror or slasher. And so that was already kind of new terrain for me. And so I think it was a balancing act in the casting process and the way we cut the film, et cetera, just to make sure that the tones were all there, that there is that kind of murder mystery, that whodunit quality. There's suspense and thrill. There's going to be classic moments of horror and slasher, but at its heart, it's also like a really human, grounded um, film with comedy. Like with
Mhm.
he's talking shit with his friend. And he's the two of them have a really great banter. Like, so that was the core, that kind of lovely dry humor, and that the heart of their friendship was the core of it. So from there we could then bounce off to moments that are more scary, or more cliche fun slasher, or that are more murder mystery. We could kind of go from there as long as our center stayed the same. So it was finding that core in terms of that core friendship and that core
Mhm.
tone.
Yeah, and I talked to Ignacio yesterday, and we were talking about how you guys did a lot of different kind of ideas for the visions. Because I was like instantly like, yeah, every time someone has a vision, you think of That's So Raven when she just like stares at the screen, or like there's no real thing you can look to for things like that other
Right.
than what we've
Yeah,
already
yeah, yeah.
done. For you, how did you navigate like exactly how the visions would play out on screen in the end product?
Yeah. So I was inspired by the Dead Zone in terms of like what's happening in the visions can have like a physical manifestation to the character seeing them, and that there's a moment in the Dead Zone with the hospital bed on fire when he's seeing the fire. So I liked that quality of almost like what the character the person, so sorry, it's hard to talk about the visions. So for like Javier, he'd be experiencing a level of the emotion or some kind of manifestation of what he's seeing. I think that was really important. And so I with Ignacio, I'd say like different versions of like we're zooming into your brain, so there's a level of like you're maybe inhaling, or you're being
Mhm.
like sucked out, or maybe it's a little bit painful or uncomfortable, or maybe you're afraid of what's about to happen, or maybe it's feeling kind of exciting. So we just tried a lot of different variations on that, with his eyes and like the emotion he's feeling. And technically with the camera, we did a really quick dolly movement, really, really close, really tight on his face, as if we're zooming into his brain. And then we got really tight close-ups of his eyes and the eyes of the characters whose brains he's going into. So we kind of
Mhm.
intercut the eyes of it, because I think the eyes are kind of like the gateway to our minds, to our souls, etc. And so that was kind of the overall approach to it while on set. And then in post, it was a collaborative process of finding the right color palette and having a frenetic quality to the way it's cut so that it feels dreamlike. But it also is, you can still kind of follow the content of what is being shown and said.
Yeah, and I also talked to him, well, because it's very funny because I'm also in the middle of watching Angel, so every time like Cordelia gets a vision, I'm always
Yeah.
like, there's another like you just had to make up a vision thing. But we also talked yesterday about how here is a character who on paper you're like, these people made fun of you. Why are you trying to save them? But it's also like he would do if he didn't try and like save these people
Yeah.
who were being murdered around him. Having that at, the heart of a movie like this where it is kind of a reluctant hero in a lot of ways because it's people he who've just made his life miserable. How did you guys kind of like map out exactly like how he was feeling in those moments and like dealing with the real high school issues that are still at the heart like a slasher of this caliber.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough. I think we can resent people or want bad things to befall them, but not want them to be murdered. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like there's a difference there. And I think the very first thing we filmed was the scene with Javier and Bianca on the grass, kind of having that long conversation. It was a great way for the two of them to kind of bond and get each other's like chemistry kind of situated on set. And that's the scene in which Javier's deciding if he's gonna make moves, if he's gonna take action and try to save these people. And I think Bianca's response of being like kind of shrugging is what was the perfect dynamic to settle into, both for me as a director and for them. We got to kind of all together determine kind of where Bianca's heart lies, where Javi's heart lies. And the key is that both characters are good people. And I think my job was just to kind of take what my actors brought to the role and
Mhm.
just give adjustments. I and no, I was reinventing the wheel with either of them. They're both really wonderful, and we cast the right people for the role, which I think for a 16-day shoot, you have to cast the perfect
Yeah.
people. You don't have time to say like, let's think about your backstory and talk about it for 2 hours. Like there's just no room for it. And so Ignacio came in with like a lot of humor and humanity, and the same with Irion. And so then from there, it just tweaked. Yeah.
Yeah, and like what I do think is so fascinating is like with these movies, you still have to also apply like the logic of like, okay, well, what is high school like now? Because if it doesn't feel authentic to a high school, despite all of these other elements, you kind of lose
Yeah.
your audience. And how did you like navigate that within having this like 16-day shoot? So it was already like crunched down so quick, so much.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's what one thing that's key is we didn't cast people that are in their 30s, we cast people that are in their early 20s, or they just graduated high school, or they just graduated college. The people that who are gonna relate to the tone of high schoolers now. And so that was another key thing is like if a line didn't feel right in one of their mouths, then they kind of workshop with Jose, our writer, to say like, okay, well, let's switch it to this. I don't like this swear word. I don't think I'd say that. Great, let's swap that one out. And especially Ignacio, he liked to kind of throw in a button sometimes and like play and kind of improvise at the end of a certain moment. And so it's like that's great. Like if you're 21, you're gonna know what feels more right than I'm gonna know what an 18-year-old's going to say, right?
Mhm.
So I think that was really helpful for them to kind of voice whenever something didn't sit quite right. But then also I think the themes of identity and coming of age and growing up are evergreen. I think it's even though we all have our own experiences, we also all are living the same experience overall. Like we're all, I mean, not all, but most of us have experienced the feeling of not fitting in and being an outsider or feeling bullied or feeling left out, feeling excluded, feeling like you don't know how to define who you are. I know I definitely felt like that in high school. I think a lot of people do. And so I think it was just leaning on that humanity, that really true core of what it is to be human and to kind of struggle with growing up. I think that's always going to feel authentic as long as you approach it with the right perspective.
Yeah. I think it works incredibly well. So thank you so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it. And I can't wait for people to get to see Departing Seniors.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Have a great day.